agriculture, the colonial economy wouldn't thrive. So the thriving of the colonial economy was basically or more on agriculture. So agriculture was the backbone of the colonial economy, which was of course emphasized by the traders. Number 4, protected European missionaries. Protected European missionaries. Protected European missionaries. How? We have seen, look at, coming with guns, aiding the missionaries with guns. Example, during the time of the religious wars in Uganda. So by protecting European missionaries, they were aiding colonization. How? Because the missionaries were also forerunners of European imperialism. Number 5. After that, we look at signed treaties with African chiefs. Yes. Signed treaties with African chiefs. Yes. We saw Dr. Carl Peters, for example. Dr. Carl Peters signing a good number of chiefs with those chiefs of Ukami, chiefs of Ugali, and many other. These are areas in Tanganyika. But what was the importance of the treaties? Like I told you, it was the beginning of collaboration. So these people never had trouble in areas where these treaties had been signed. Besides, they were being called protection treaties. So when the Africans heard of the name protection, they knew they were going to be protected from any danger. That's why they had to do what? To sign. Number 6 is to do with fought local resistance. Yes. Fought local resistance. Like I told you, these people had a gun. So by having a gun, and we said where resistance was met, they answered in the same way. When they were resisted, they answered in the same way. So when they came and got the resistance, they fought back. That was one of the reasons, of the ways how colonial rule was established in East Africa, through force. So where there was the resistance, force was applied. And who applied it? It was the traders, who did not want the resistors to inhibit their activities. And because of that, it brought about the colonization process, because these people were looking to prepare the way to clear the fracas which could have disturbed their final masters, and those are the colonials. Number 7. When they went bankrupt, when they went bankrupt, what happened? They called home for support. When they went bankrupt, they called for support, and after that, it ended up in the relinquishing of the licenses. Yes, when they went bankrupt, they called home for support and for occupation. Yes, and for occupation. So they called upon home for support, either financially, and then which of course led to occupation. How? They said they were no longer able to move on. Financially, they had been incapacitated. So it was time for the home countries to come and take over. It's like when you are supervising a project for somebody. And that time comes when the owner wants to take over the what? The project. So this is what happened. The traders were here to implement the roles of the colonials who gave them the licenses, who gave them the charters, like I've told you. So the time was ripe for them to surrender the charters that they had been given by their respective home countries. So when they went bankrupt, they surrendered the charters after calling for support and finally calling for colonial occupation. Number 8, they established transport networks, yes. Established transport networks. Established transport networks. Example roads and railways. Example roads and what? And railways, and which of course were used by the colonials. How were the colonials able to use them? Transporting their troops, transporting raw materials from the interior of the coast to aid the hungry industries at home. So you can see all this was leading to colonization. We continue with role number 9, still of the traders in the colonization. Role number 9. What was another role? Number 9. They divided African societies. Yes, divided African societies. What was the importance of this one in line with colonization? A divided society was easier to occupy than the one which was one. How did they divide the societies? Through the use of the divide and the rule tactics. Yes, creating the unnecessary hostility among the ones united what? Societies. So they were kept apart. And when time came for the colonists to arrive, they found an already disjointed what? Society, which was not easy to unite against the what? The common enemy. So that's how it ended up favoring colonization. Number 10, they set up administrative quarters. Yes, set up administrative quarters, forts, and the garrisons. Yes, set up administrative quarters. These are the ones that were called bombers. Administrative bombers. This is where the colonialists finally settled to do administration work. How about the forts and the garrisons? What could have been the importance of these forts? Fort Partico, you heard about that. Fort Porto, all those. They were defensive units where they had their bases, and it is from there that they were now very much stable to counteract any threat from the would-be resistors. So those are the ones, forts and garrisons. Next, apart from the forts and garrisons, they provided funds to colonial administration. Yes, provided funds to colonial administration. Yes, like I told you that the most disturbing problem faced by the colonialists was not the lack of funds they had, but it was not enough. It was inadequate funding. So, until the time came to surrender their charters, they had been giving funding to the colonialists. Yes, until they gave up and said, we are gonna go home. So that's how they finally gave in their control. Another, they gave gifts and jobs to the natives. They gave gifts and jobs to natives. How was this one going to help? Of course, they were seen as good people. They have given us gifts. You remember Kabaka Mutesa, one who was given a heart. He was very much appreciative of the heart. So it was easy to convince these people. And even jobs, of course, cars were jobs. So that one looked as a way of luring them into accepting what? Colonization. Another is gave guns, yes, to chiefs. They gave guns to chiefs. And what was the use of these guns? Especially for societies which were not cooperative. So they would give guns to the one who had cooperated with them to fight the enemy. And when time came for the colonists to come, they had somebody on their side. They already had secured support from the side which had cooperated. So the giving of guns alone helped in the eventual colonization. Then another related one is participated in religious wars. Participated in religious wars. That was between 1885 to 1900. In Uganda, I've already told you about these wars. That's between the European missionaries, that's the Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, and the traditionalists, those that believed in traditional religion. So the participation of the traders or the chartered campers in these wars was very instrumental in the final colonization. How? For example, Captain Frederick Lugard of Iberia was the man behind the success of the Protestants in the wars. I remember how the Muslims had been influential and of course trying to inform Kabaka Mwanga that the two Christian groups, that is the Catholics and the Protestants, we are going to overthrow him. So they were trying to poison Mwanga with a lot of ideas. But little did they know that finally they would live to regulate. So after that, the arrival of Captain Lugard, of course, who arrived with guns, he came and supported these missionary groups, the Protestants and Catholics, to fight the Muslims who fled. And by fleeing, I mean they ran away from Uganda. They fled up to Kabula, those around the massacre areas. So when they reached there, they were still attacked and then chased up to Bunyon. So you can see the role played by Lugard here, giving the guns to the two missionary groups. But of course, the Catholics were also not forgetting that at one time Lugard could turn against them, because Lugard had come from a Protestant country, Britain. So they were also suspicious. They were also smelling a rat at this time. With the defeat of the Muslims, we look at Captain Lugard once again, aiding the Protestants, now who turned the guns to the Catholics, who were mercilessly and miserably defeated. And of course, the Protestants won the wars in 1900. So you can see. But what does that one mean? What does the Protestant success mean to the colonialists? And remember, each of these European groups represented the colonial ambitions, with the Protestants representing England, whereas the Catholics representing France. So if the French had succeeded in the religious wars, it would be the French to finally take over Bougainville. But it was a success of the what? Of the Protestants who had come from Britain, which saw the Brits controlling Bougainville. So you can see the role played by the traders here. Lugard comes in with his guns, and by the way, up to now, the Catholics have never forgiven him. They have never forgiven him because they say that because of his participation, Lugard's participation in these wars is the reason they lost in the religious wars of 1885 to 1900. But blame him not. He was acting on the orders of the home country that had given them the operational charters. The operational charters or licenses. So they had to fulfill that, the colonial directives, and which of course culminated into the taking over of Buganda by the British after signing the 1900 Buganda Agreement, which gave them legal occupation and of course legal cooperation with the Buganda. So that one also brings us to the end of the traders, and which is